Which edition of Ulysses do you want to read? That seems like it should be a simple question, right? But guess what? Like all things James Joyce, it's not simple. This is Ulysses for Beginners. I'm Adam Savage. Before we crack into the nightmare that is Ulysses editions, let's look at something that I mentioned last time. Ulysses Annotated, this book, which is really cool. I like it. But I may have given you the false impression that this includes Ulysses. You know, most annotated books like the Annotated Alice or the Annotated Flatland, they include the original text and then they have notes alongside or down at the bottom of the page or in the back of the book somewhere. Not so with Ulysses Annotated. This book is just notes and it's still 650 pages. So you're going to still need a copy of Ulysses itself. If these had been one book together, it would be like a 1,400-page book, and it would be really heavy, and you'd hurt your arm. Ulysses was originally serialized in magazine form in a magazine called The Little Review. And this magazine started it, I want to say 1918, publishing it. And, you know, every few months or so, they put out an episode. And some of the episodes are long. I think they even broke up the episodes a few times. But there was also this Obscenity Trial that took place that really took a toll on the magazine and the time of the people involved with it. I want to say her name is Margaret Anderson. She had to be involved with it, and they lost the case. And if you want to read more about it, there's a really great book called The Most Dangerous Book. I believe that's the title. I'll put it here. And it's a great book. Check it out. It really, you see the hassle and the obstacles that were involved with putting Ulysses before the public, not just the difficulties of the text itself, but the the quote unquote obscenities. And it's kind of ironic, not really, but that the chapter that finally got him was the Nausicaa chapter, which is kind of written in the style of like a tawdry romance novel, erotica, lightweight type of thing. So it's written in this really kind of bad style. Joyce is like making fun of that. But I think that's like one of the few chapters that people can read pretty easily. So I think that's kind of funny. Anyways, it was starting to be published in magazine format, but they only got through about 14 episodes. I don't even think they even finished the 14th episode, Oxen in the Sun, before it just became a hassle and they decided to publish the entire book in novel form as a complete book. That was published by Shakespeare & Co. and Company. And there's a lot of great info about, like I said, in that other book. But back to editions. So Ulysses finally saw print in complete form in 1922. And that edition, because it was published in France by French, the people setting the typographers, I guess that'd be called, I think they didn't even speak English, and there were lots of typos. It's filled with typos. Later editions, they would initially they would put a page of errata listing the typos so they wouldn't have to reset the type, because resetting the type on a whole book back then was a major issue, a lot of work. So they just put a page at the back or the front saying, these are the typos that we found. And you just had to live with it. And then they did reset the type a few times. And then the best version of fixing all those typos that I know of is the versions that were done in 1960 and 1961. I think there was a British edition and an American edition. It's pretty easy to figure out. If you just look at the copyright page, it'll say this edition is based, like my edition says, this edition of Ulysses follows the complete and unabridged text as corrected and reset in 1961. So I think this is a really good edition. There's various publishers that have handled this. I want to say Modern Library, Random House, maybe Penguin. I'm going to link, because it's confusing, in the info below to a few pages. The Wikipedia page has info, but also this other page has photos of the different editions and what you can expect. And I really recommend that edition, the 1960-61 edition. But there is another edition that came out in the 1980s called the Gobbler Edition that initially scholars were like, this is the best Ulysses ever, blah, blah, blah. This Gobbler guy and these Germans or something, they put it together. And I don't know. I've looked at it, and I want to say even that the version on Project Gutenberg is based on that because it looks more like that than my edition. But there's a lot of reasons why I don't recommend that book. I think that those editors, they took a lot of liberties. And if you have that edition, no problem. You can still read the story. It's the same story. There are some passages that are included in that aren't included in this one, including a famous passage about the word known to all men being love. In my edition, that we don't know what the word known to all men is, although I just told you, so now you know. But there are just a lot of textual choices that book makes that it's kind of, initially it was really favored, but since then it's kind of fallen out of favor, and I tend to agree with those criticisms. So it's not going to destroy your image of the story. You're still going to get the same story, but if you just look at the first page of that, even like exclamation points are used where exclamation points don't exist in the original. And his argument, as I understand it, is that, you know, Joyce's eyesight was really bad and it was getting worse. By the time he died, he was nearly blind. He had to have tons of operations, so he couldn't edit it, and there were also a lot of time constraints. He didn't have time to, you know, an 800-page book, to check it really thoroughly. There was a lot of rush and a lot of issues involved. So this guy says he went back to the original text, the notes that Joyce wrote himself, or the actual writing that Joyce did, and how he thinks that Joyce wanted it. My argument is that, you know, Joyce saw Ulysses as it came out, first in the little review and then the published version. And we don't have him saying like some huge outcry saying like, this is not how I wanted my book. No, that doesn't exist. It's just like, he's like, fine, it's done. I'm moving on to my next book. So it's really up to you. You can read more about the editions. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in. I like this edition. I like the typesetting. It's a really nice font too. This is actually the original font that was used in the... I could be wrong about that. I think this is the font used in the 1934 version, but it's a beautiful book, a nice font, and I recommend this edition. I'll provide some links. You can decide for yourself. But you're basically getting the same book in each edition. It's just, you know, scholars are going to get crazy about it. But let's move on.